All right, let's do this. Josh, Jakey, how long does it take?
All right. Here we go.
Hey guys.
How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. How's DKECON going?
Living the dream, dude.
That's good to hear.
Maybe.
Sorry.
I'm supposed to be upbeat and here we are. Yeah.
Yay, positive. Woo!
I don't know. If I was hiring me, I would fire me as a host because why are we talking about me? We're here to talk about you.
All right, what do you want to know?
Well, let's just start at the beginning. If you could introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do.
My name's Alex Hallman. For most people, it's Random Skull Productions. Most of you probably know me from my Darth Buddha or my Toilet War series.
Wow. The Darth Buddha is interesting because it's one of my favorite genres of the resin scene is religious iconography in resin toys, and it's sort of like I think where everyone starts out is just chopping the head off of a Buddha and then putting a Star Wars head on it.
I have to agree. I kind of followed the footsteps of it was a Killer Bootlegs, and I think Forces of Darkness did one too. And then at the same time, Extra Truck Esriel was doing his oh my God, Buddha tour. It was Skeletor's head on a Buddha body.
Right. So everyone's sort of done it. And I have a shelf over there, and there's dozens of them, and it's sort of like a rite of passage, I guess.
I agree. It's what it felt like.
So let's talk about your earliest inspirations, how you found resin toy making, what inspired you, how you got into it, your origin story, if you will.
Well, I got into it by a friend of mine introducing me to Kid Robot Dunnies. I've always been a Pez collector, so it was something where it was the same thing but different, and there were a ton of different variations, so it kind of hooked me right in. And with the Dunnies, I also got on Instagram because there were a lot of people with huge collections on there. And in looking at their pictures, I stumbled upon people who were making their own toys, sculpting their own things, making molds, pouring resin. So at that point, I kind of looked at it and thought, why not give it a shot myself? So I had sculpted up a couple of just simple things. The first two items I ever made were Random Skull and Random Ghost, just little simple, not a whole lot of venting in the mold kind of stuff, just simple pour and dump kind of stuff. And then once I started getting a little more familiar with that, I started seeing on Instagram more and more like toy artists who were doing bootleg things like 2-Bit Hack, Killer Bootlegs, again, Extra Truck Esriel. He was doing a lot of the Masters of the Universe stuff. So it kind of inspired me to kind of take my own shot at it. And when it came to Darth Buddha, that was kind of like a little, like, I don't want to say a joke, but something that a friend of mine, Sean, and I came up with riding around in his BMW. He had always had a Buddha on his dashboard, and I kept looking at it every time we were in there. And I took a trip to New York once, and he asked me to pick him up a new one on my trip. And when I came home, I didn't give it to him right away. I molded it and bootlegged it so I could turn it into Darth Buddha before I actually gave it to him.
That's great.
So it was a gift, but I kind of had to keep it for myself for a little bit just so I could mess around.
As one does, of course. I remember I don't know what year was that, 2016? You made us the exclusive red one for New York Comic Con.
Oh yeah, it was 2016. Actually, I have him
2016,
right here.
2017. And that was fascinating because that was the first time we had set up in New York, and there was a lot of, that show is about, outreach and explaining the medium to other people. But that was one of the few toys where people came straight up to the booth, didn't need an explanation. They just understood, they saw the price, and it was like, boom. It was one of the first things we sold out, or second or third. And people who would never probably buy an action figure just gravitated towards that. I mean, it was a bright color. They were into, I don't know if they were into Buddhas or what it was, but if people just point at it, they would leave, they'd bring a friend, they're sitting pointing at it, and then somehow, and the packaging, did you put them in a Chinese to go little
I
carton?
I believe they were. They were in a Chinese to-go box, and they were wrapped in like a cloth when I put them in the box. But they did have the Chinese takeout box. I thought that was a nice little touch for it.
Yeah, that was fantastic. So you started out with Dunnies. Do you still collect Dunnies?
I do, not quite as much as I collect Pez. More of a Pez collector than I am Dunnies. I do still buy them from time to time, but just not as much. They haven't been putting as many out, and they're just some of them are just a little out of my price point.
I mean, how many Pez are we talking about?
Oh, let's see. Just in my living room alone, I have maybe 1,500 on display,
And
and at
then
least maybe another 200 up in the attic that are, still on cards, in boxes, in their bags. I have store displays, all kinds of crazy stuff.
wow, that is a commitment. Now, do you open all of the 1,500 that are on display are all open?
Yes, they're all open. I have like grandstand displays that they're all on, so you can see each one perfectly. No one's standing in front of the other one. So, but I take
Wow.
most of them. I take most of them out of the packages. There's a few limited edition ones that stay in the package, but I like to see them more on display. You can pull them down, play with them a little bit,
But
fill them with candy if you want to.
most Pez collectors open their stuff, right? I mean, that's kind of a, you just can't
Most of them,
display it in
yeah.
a bag, right? It's just, if it's in that bag, like, what do you do?
Exactly. I like the feel of it. I like to take it out. Don't get me wrong. They look good in their original package, just like all the toys that we make. They look good on the package, but if you can't take it out and play with it, kind of what's the point?
Sure. Do you have to use like some sort of museum gel or something? How do you get them not to do like a whole domino display and
Well, actually, maybe about 5 or 10 years into me collecting, I found a company that made grandstands that have rails on the bottom that you put the Pez dispenser in sideways and turn it, and it kind of locks it in place. You could pick the whole display up and turn it upside down, and none of them will fall off.
That's insane. How do we get off on this tangent talking about
I don't,
Pez? We're here,
I
we're
don't
here
know.
trying to talk about you and your art career. I'm fascinated by your 1,500 Pez. Jesus. All right. So were you always, like a creative person? Were you always is this like your medium? Are there other forms of art you engage in? Did you study art? How did this become your medium?
Well, my day job is I'm a cake decorator. So
Mhm.
I've always had kind of a creative background, even elementary school through high school. I always draw, paint, anything I could do. And then I think it was ninth or 10th grade, they started a vocational wing at my high school, and I got sucked into baking and pastry, which gave me a whole different world to, basically do art through, but you could eat it.
Mhm.
And now that's pretty much what I've been doing. I don't want to say my entire life, but it's been my only career. I've been a cake decorator for as long as I can remember. And I used to do it out of my apartment, or actually out of my parents' house and out of my apartment a little bit. Um, it kind of got a little monotonous. You go to work, do cakes, come home, do cakes. It would get a little out of hand. So once I found all the artists on Instagram, and I got the inspiration to make stuff, it kind of gave me a different outlet to use my creativeness. Instead of doing cakes all day long and coming home and doing them, I would do cakes at work all day and then come home and break out the resin and silicone, and it would give me a whole different kind of joy instead of coming home and starting what I was working on at work all over again. It did kind of felt like I was never leaving work. So
Mhm.
this gave me a whole different opportunity to be creative. And I've even worked in some of my toys into my cakes. I did some of my original pieces for a wedding cake topper for my best friend Sean and his wife Cassie.
Mhm.
So they both careers, or both the career and the hobby, have kind of crossed paths a couple of times.
Sure. Cake decorating is, I mean, it's sort of like, I don't know how to say it. It's like this, I would guess call it sort of like a master class in, continually doing the same design over and over again and getting it exactly right and doing it very quickly. You're
Yeah,
actually not the only cake decorator who's made toys. We've sold toys for Little Lazies, and she also developed her, style out of Sculpey that, she makes all those characters over and over and over again, and it came out of cake decorating. So
Wow,
um,
that's awesome to find out.
yeah. So, and then also you can't fuck up, right?
No, you got to be, you can't have your customers come in and they saw a picture of what they wanted and it looks completely different. You have
I
to
mean,
be
can you take
accurate.
a spatula and kind of get it off there and fix it if
Sometimes, yes and no. Sometimes you can really tell where if you had to pull something off of there, you can tell where it was fixed.
right? That's kind of like Scott's old job, Barbarian Rage's old job, painting fishing reels, right? You were painting on metal fishing reels, and if you fucked up, you couldn't change it, so you just throw the fishing reel out. And then he
One
got,
shot, one kill.
and then and then his boss would whip him.
Oh, well, there's been plenty of times where I've had to start over completely on whole full sheet, half sheet cakes. It's not fun, but when you want to put something out that people are going to see and they want accuracy, you gotta give it to them. You can't just half-ass it and hope that they're okay with it.
Sure. I mean, is the whole cake trash, or can you just, start over again with the bottom level?
I could start over again. I have scraped a couple of times. If it's really bad, I'll just take and cut it up and we'll sell it as reduced pieces of cake and I'll just start over again.
Wow.
It depends on if it's a chocolate cake. If you try to scrape the icing off of it, it just turns into a big chocolatey mess and it's not worth it. It's better to just start over.
Yeah, I remember before pandemic, we're trying to get you to fly out here to
Oh
sign the
man.
Resin Masters print, and it had to be like, I forgot what you said. You were working like 6 days a week or seven. It was
Yeah.
like,
And
it
it's
was,
still that way. Recently, our manager left and I took over as the manager, and we're only down to 3 people in the bakery, and it takes at least 4 to 5 people to run it accurately. So
Mhm.
I'm pulling more and more overtime every day, just trying to keep things going.
Wow, that's insane.
It keeps me busy. It kind of took me away from toys a little bit, but I'm trying to get back into it.
So let's talk about your other line of scatological humor based figures.
Oh, that's
How
gonna
did
be Toilet Wars.
how did those start?
Well, it came from something that everybody can relate to. Everybody goes to the bathroom. Everyone's been in a public toilet. You've seen a urinal. It's something that we all do.
Do you have the first one there on the shelf? You can
I do. The first one that I did for you for what was that? San Diego Comic-Con in 2017.
probably.
Yeah, that was the first R2D2 right there. I learned a lot of lessons on this guy.
Now, I remember seeing the prototype of that. Was that at DKECON one year?
That was at DKECON in 2015. I had a bunch of different prototypes that were all different colors. They didn't have different painted legs. They were pretty much a one piece, which was extremely difficult to get out of the mold with the 2 legs and the square base, and all the sanding involved was kind of ridiculous. So yeah, those were the prototypes that you saw at DesignerCon.
You know, I don't know how to say this, but your toilets keep getting better and better.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I appreciate that.
Can you show the Emperor throne there? That was from the
Emperor's
last
Throne.
Clutter show.
Yeah, that was the last Clutter show.
I I
We even
I
got real toilet paper here. Got a real roll of toilet paper. If you're in a
Wow.
pinch and you needed just a little bit,
I am
got a
not
little bit right
embarrassed to
there.
say that I have a complete collection of Toilet Wars toys, and
Oh, that's awesome.
I did buy one of those from the Clutter Gallery to maintain my completeness. So those of you who are
Oh,
laughing at him for his 1,500 Pez on display, you could laugh at me for my collection of Toilet Wars figures.
well,
Wow.
soon enough, I'll be releasing another version of that. I'm gonna do the black version with purple, purple, I guess, padding, I guess it would be on the back there, and a purple toilet seat. Well, I'm not gonna give it all away just yet, but there will be another version of the Emperor's Throne coming for the general public.
Nice. So did you sorry, did we talk about this? Did you study art in school?
No, I didn't study art. Actually, I went to Johnson and Wales in Providence, Rhode Island, and I studied baking and pastry. I did 2.5 years there, and I learned everything I could from sugar sculpting to cake decorating.
But
Um,
sugar sculpting, it seems like baking is like science,
it
but
is. It's very accurate.
but sculpting and cake decorating is art.
I agree.
How do they just teach the same people both of those things? It's not what most people go to school for those two disciplines in the same thing do.
It is tough. You kind of have to have a little bit of an artistic background before you even get into it. 'Cause it's hard to teach. I don't know to be creative when it comes to decorating cakes. I mean, it's easy to just show, like in our classes, it was the same cake, and sometimes it's easy to just copy things, but when it comes down to making your own design, your own tort or something like that, it's kind of hard to teach that. So it wasn't, they didn't teach a lot of the creativity. It was more of us copying what was basically in the textbook. And I took that
I see.
knowledge and kind of went from there and
Uh-huh.
put my own spin on things.
Got it. And so do you think most people in the cake decorating world are just copying?
No, I don't think so. I
No.
think maybe in the grocery store world where you have a lot of, you can just go up and pick out the design. I think that is just a lot of copying. But I
Mhm.
think that there are a lot of cake decorators and cake artists who do a lot of their own thing.
So if you get to cake decorating school and you sort of don't have the artistic bug, you're kind of shit out of luck.
You kind of, you
Yeah.
gotta have a little bit. I mean, you can't just go and not have anything at all. You kind of have to have that want, that drive to be creative and do things. If you just get there like you've never done anything before, you're gonna struggle through it.
Right. That'd be pretty depressing. People's like, "Hey, how's things going?" It's like, "Man, I flunked out of cake decorating school."
Like, oh, I can't even decorate a cake right.
Wow. So but growing up, were you always doing creative stuff? Like, because you said you sort of had to have that creative bug going in. What age were you when you started cake decorating?
I was always in the kitchen with my mom when I started cake decorating. I want to say I was maybe like 14, 15, doing things just out of the house. And then once I got into high school, I did a senior project where I worked at a grocery store, and that kind of gave me a little bit more of a leap into it. But I had always been creative, always used to draw, was very into like making things out of, this is probably date me, but connects and Legos and old school Lincoln logs, always being creative, building things. It was, I always had the drive to want to do something creatively. I couldn't just sit around and play video games or do anything like that. I was always looking for something to do, whether it was, again, drawing, painting, building model cars, or, creating things out of, connects when I was younger. And then, of course, when I got into cake decorating, that opened up a whole new world there too.
And so, like, one of the themes I think that we sort of touch on in most of these interviews that we're doing is the struggle of people who do something creative for a living and then having to have some sort of like steam left to come home and work on your personal art.
That is kind of tough, but for me, seeing the way people react when they see, like you were talking about with my Darth Buddha, or the hearing you have a whole collection. There are other fans of mine who have huge collections of my stuff. That's what kind of still gives me the steam and the drive to want to do it after I'm at work for 8, 9 hours, knowing that there are people out there who enjoy what I've done and I can make them happy with what I've done is what gives me the motivation to get back in my workshop and pour more resin, make more ghosts, or make more Darth Buddhas. It's always been, even in the cake decorating world, the one thing that makes me the happiest is when people show up and they're just excited to see what I've done, and it's what they wanted. Just making people happy has always kind of been my drive behind it. It gets a little, it can get monotonous and you can get down on yourself because sometimes things don't go right, but in the end, when that customer or that friend or family member reacts to what you did, it just makes it all totally worth it.
can imagine. We were talking about like the feeling of like when someone comes up to the table and they connect with something that we have and they make the purchase and you see it, that's sort of like the rewarding part with the
It really is just seeing that glimmer in their eye, like, oh my God, I've never seen this before and I need to have it. It makes it
it's,
all worth it.
and so just curious, are you the one that is dealing with the end customer? Like are you taking the order and talking to them about their, I mean, do they come into the shop with just like crazy fucking requests? Like,
Some people do. Some people do. And since I work for technically, I don't want to say a corporation, but a small business, I
mhm,
have to kind of keep it mild to
uh-huh.
what they want. Even though I break copyrights all the time with the Star Wars stuff, I can't do it at work. I have to tell people, no, I can't. And half of me is
Also,
like, but you do it all the time at home. Why can't you do it here?
oh, really? So if someone comes in there and they want like Darth Vader or Garfield or whatever, like you can't do it?
If it's not something I have in my book or something I can get them like an edible image of or like a little toy kit, then I can't do it. We have right on our
Uh,
little counter, we have this whole copyright law that we have to explain to the customer that if you bring me an image from Google or if it's something that has a copyright logo on it, we're not allowed to copy it or even I can't even draw it on the cake.
but but why not? I mean, I understand I know that license that intellectual property holders license their images to cake decorators and cake decorating kits.
Correct.
But if you're an artist and your medium is cake, like, I mean, I can, as an artist, if I wanted to, I can paint like, you know, Darth Vader and sell that painting without, I mean, it's made by hand and it ends up in someone's gut or the trash. Like,
I
I
I
don't,
I completely understand, and I've had to explain to customers that I don't really agree with it. It's something I have to do because of the company I work for. They don't want to take the risk of someone seeing it, goes back to the original producer, and then all of a sudden the store is getting in trouble or sued or it's basically it's not me telling them that I don't want to do it. It's
mhm,
the company telling them and I have to go along with it since they signed my paycheck.
right. So what other kind of like ridiculous requests? Like, how do you manage a customer's expectations? I guess is what I want to know.
Well, first I let them get everything out. I let them tell me what they're looking for and then I kind of go from there and let them know what I can and can't do.
Uh-huh.
Most of the time, I can usually meet the customer's expectations. It's when they bring in something that I can't copy or it's something that I can't redraw, then it becomes something that we have to get into. Well, we can do this or that, or you could bring me a figure and I can decorate the cake to look like a scene from it, and then you can
Uh-huh.
put the figure on yourself. So it's really it's difficult when, especially when somebody comes in and they have something like they're dead set on, and you have to tell them that we could either do it this way or that way, but not the way that you want to do it.
Like they want like two pigs fucking on the cake, and then what?
I've had those kind of things where people have come in and say, "Hey, can you draw a dick or a vagina on this cake?"
Mm.
And I have to tell them no. The company I work for is run by Mennonites, and I don't know how they're going to feel about seeing a huge dick or a vagina come out of the store. It might ruin the reputation, but I'd be more than happy to do it outside of work for you.
So I take it no gay weddings either.
I can write the two names on it, but definitely not putting two dicks on there or anything. We gotta draw the line somewhere.
Yeah. Wow. That's
So
amazing.
it's been crazy. I get a lot more requests for just writing like dirty words on there, motherfucker, or
Uh,
crazy stuff. So some of it I can get away with. It depends on who's working the front end that day. If I can sneak it past them real quick, then I'll do it. But you gotta catch me on a good day.
got it. Wow. That's what I want. Is I want a cake that says "bad motherfucker" on it.
If I
So
could ship a cake to, if I could ship a cake out there, I would make it.
I'll be okay. um. So, what's next in the random skull world? I mean, you have these two, main lines of stuff that you've been making. You know, for years. Are there other things planned or?
I have a few more ideas when it comes to the Toilet Wars line. I want to do a re-release of CUPP, maybe
Mhm.
just a clean chrome, regular version of him. I also have, I'm going to be working on, like I said, the newer version of the Emperor's Throne, where it'll be more
Do you
more of
have
the colorway. I'm
do
sorry,
you have one handy there? I see some on the
the
shelf.
the Emperor's Throne.
No, the urinal one.
The urinal. I have the Clutter Gallery version, which was the original gold version. And then I have the version that I made for you for, I forget what the name of that show was, but it was the used version where he had the pee stains on his legs.
Robot remix, right? And
Oh
so
yeah, the
do
Robot Remix show.
your Mennonite bosses know what you do on the side?
Vaguely, they have an idea of what I do. I try.
That's the best response to any question I've ever asked in one of these interviews. Vaguely.
They kind of know. I don't give too much away. I tell them that I make toys on the side, and I don't quite show them the potty humor so much. I show them more of the skulls and the ghosts that I do. That they can understand that a little bit more. Not everybody understands the toilet humor quite as well as we do.
Mm. You're welcome.
But thank you. I'm glad that everybody accepts it, and it's like I said, it's something everyone can relate to. So how can you look at it and not have a little chuckle? Like, look at that droid with pee stains on his legs.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you for having me on.
Love
And
your work. I hope I can see you soon to get those prints signed.
we will
Uh,
definitely have to work something out here soon. Now that I'm the manager at the store, I can schedule myself off whenever I want, make everybody else work for me.
Woohoo! I don't
What's
know,
the point of
maybe.
having power if you can't abuse it?
Hope your bosses don't hear that.
Well,
Yeah.
I have some explaining to do tomorrow, but we'll see how that goes.
All
Let
right,
me
man.
just take this opportunity to be the
Yes.
third smartest artist here.
Yes.
If you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram, Random Skull Productions. I haven't posted much on there, some of my original stuff, but soon enough I'll be posting more of the bootlegs. The Toilet Wars series is going to come back with a few more characters. So I'm also on Facebook. I know everybody's on there, but I spend most of my time on Instagram. So if you want to follow me, hit me up on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much, dude. We'll talk to you
Thanks
soon.
again, Todd. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, guys.
Now I've guilted everyone into being like good promoters.